So when baby enters the pelvis, basically the widest part of their head can't fit in the pelvis this way because of the way the pelvis is shaped. To enter it, they have to turn their head to the side and engage down this way to the side. So at the end of pregnancy, you might hear people say like your baby drops, which means your baby engages. So they go from floating above the pelvis to starting to enter the pelvis, which means they're engaged. Babies engage from, it's called -3 to +3. And station is how they measure baby's station. If you were to get a cervical exam, for example, in pregnancy or in labor, they might say like, oh, your baby is at like 0 station, which is really low in the pelvis. That means your baby, the widest part of the head has passed the widest part of the pelvis, basically. And they'll be able to tell by feeling the head. And they can measure how far the head is from the tailbone with their finger, basically. But it's just kind of like a manual assessment. It's never 100% accurate. And that is basically telling you how deep baby is in the pelvis. But what can happen sometimes is that baby's coming through the pelvis. And since there is so much tension, maybe on one side of the pelvis versus the other side, what baby might do is I'm going to favor this side and I'm going to try to come down like this. Or as I'm trying to come down sideways, because of like the pressure and the tension of the pelvic floor, what's happening is instead of coming down here, I'm going to tilt my head to the side because I don't have the space and the flexibility and the musculature in the pelvic floor that's enabling me to like push against it and do the moves I need to. Instead, as the uterus is contracting and pushing me down, I'm just going to tilt my head this way. And an asynclitic baby, when the baby's head is tilted to the side, can absolutely make labor so much longer. It can make labor a lot more painful and can often lead to C-sections, though I have seen vaginal births with asynclitic babies. And just because a baby's asynclitic doesn't mean they'll be like that forever. We can sometimes get baby to change their position. And one of the best ways to do that is to do the spinning babies in labor, the inversion specifically, because we can get the baby to being in the pelvis in a funky way. If you go upside down, the baby's head will come out, realign, and then go back in is the idea of the spinning babies inversion. And so I can go deeper another time into like what spinning babies to do depending on what thing is going on. In general, just a general rule of thumb to prevent positioning issues, doing the spinning babies consistently from 32 weeks on is really ideal. Or if you have any like inkling that in labor there is a positioning issue, like you're experiencing a lot of pain in your back, your labor is really long, or maybe you are in early labor like forever, maybe like all day into the night, or for 24 hours, you've just been in early labor and you're never like kicking over into active labor. If there is a pattern, like a contraction pattern that's funky, like you're having contractions 5 minutes apart and then all of a sudden they're 8 minutes apart, and then 12 minutes apart, and then 3 minutes apart. All of those are signs that the baby is not in an ideal position. So asynclitic is one position that's common for a positioning issue. Another one is OP, which is facing forward, instead of baby's OA, or anterior, which is facing back. I will say posterior isn't necessarily a positioning issue when the baby comes through this way and is born, right, like this way. It is a variation of normal. And some moms have a pelvis that is more encouraging for baby to get into a posterior position. I really believe that babies are very wise in knowing what position to get into to help them come through the pelvis. They really are. But at the same time, there are so many things we can do to kind of encourage them to get in the most ideal position to navigate a pelvis, and to also encourage them to not have to like compensate based on tension and things like that. If we are orienting our body at the end of pregnancy, there's a few ways you can do this that I'll teach you in addition to the spinning babies. If you're orienting your body in a way that is supporting an anterior position, if you do the spinning babies and some other daily movements to help support flexibility in the musculature that surrounds your pelvis, those things are going to help encourage your baby to be in an anterior position. And every once in a while, there'll be a baby that's like, you'll do all the right things and they're still wanting to come out OP. And maybe they'll come out OP and have like, you'll have no issue. Because sometimes that can happen. You can have a baby posterior just like come out super smooth. Even though it's more rare, typically they cause a little bit of hiccups, but maybe that's like how your baby wanted to come through the pelvis. Also, breech is a variation of normal when baby wants to come down butt first too. And you can try to turn a baby if they're breech if you want, or you can have a breech vaginal birth if you want to do that too. That's a whole other topic we should talk about another time. If your baby is like this one mom had a breech baby, we tried to turn the baby and we got the baby to turn, and then the baby got stuck in her pelvis. And I was kind of wondering, like, is that because that baby just really knew that breech was a better orientation to navigate the pelvis? Because at the end of pregnancy, your baby is basically like with little practice contractions and movements, they're kind of sensing your, pelvis and the space that they have and trying to figure out what orientation is going to be best for them to come through. So I kind of wonder if every once in a while a baby chooses a position because they're like, this is truly the best one. So that's kind of a quick illustration of positioning issues and some things to look out for. Let's talk about the spinning baby specifically. So what I recommend doing at the end of pregnancy is at the end of the day, do this one time a day, do the 3 sisters of balance. So the 3 sisters of balance are 3 different positions that you can do. And I invite you to do them with your partner to help to promote flexibility and balance in the musculature that surrounds your pelvis and in the pelvic floor. Connecting all of these muscles down here. So when we stretch other muscles like in the leg, we're also, tapping into the muscles in the middle of the pelvis and in the pelvic floor as well, because everything is connected. Even through your arms, like if you were to be pushing and baby's not coming, if you lift your arms during pushing, that can help to open the pelvis wider sometimes, and that can help make pushing a little bit faster. It's really amazing how everything is connected. The first one is called the sideline release, and this one is done with a partner. You would want to lie on your side on a bed, scooch to the edge of the bed, and take your top leg. So if you can imagine, this is you, and you're lying on your side, and then take your top leg and just let it release like this. So your top leg is just going to be dangling off the bed and stretching. And you should probably feel a little stretch in the back of your thigh or in your booty or hip. If you don't, that's okay. It probably means you have a lot of flexibility there, which is great, but there still is work happening on your pelvic floor. So keep doing it. And I would do it for 2 minutes on each side. You want to get to the edge of the bed to a point where you feel like you're going to fall off if your partner isn't there. And you want your partner to put one hand on your hip and one hand on your shoulder to hold you up. So they need to be physically holding you up to give you the right kind of stretch. So the next one is an inversion. If your baby is breech and you want to see if you could gently encourage them to turn, you want to be doing inversions frequently throughout the day. If you are not having a breech baby, you just want to do the inversion once a day. You don't want to do it like all throughout the day, because sometimes it can encourage a baby to turn if you do it a ton. But basically, kind of like I mentioned before, when you take your pelvis and flip it upside down, the baby is going to, come out of the pelvis. And when they come out, it gives them a chance when you come back up to realign in a better way. Sometimes babies can, at the end of pregnancy, like you're having a lot of practice contractions, maybe that it's kind of like pushing baby down into the pelvis a little bit. So they might just kind of really start to favor one side and get nice and cozy here, and then just kind of get scrunched and scrunched deeper and deeper, maybe in like a not super ideal position. And when we do the inversion every day, we're offering baby an invitation to just come out a little bit to give them a chance to realign and wiggle back into maybe a better position. So it's just constantly inviting them to realign again and again and again. The inversion is so powerful, especially for active labor. If you were to notice a positioning issue, it's such a great thing to do, because if the baby is like trying to come through in a really non-ideal way and they're not fitting through the pelvis, if we keep forcing them to go through, we might just wedge them deeper and deeper into a non-ideal position. So for example, sometimes if your baby is asynclitic, so their head's tilted to the side, a way to address it, some people will try this, is to have the mom push really hard, even though there's still a thin band of cervical tissue around the baby's head, because you're not dilated to 10 yet. We can't really dilate to 10 without adequate pressure from the baby's head. If the baby's head's tilted to the side, and they're putting like uneven pressure on the cervix, if the cervix isn't going to dilate all the way around, it'll dilate more on one side than the other. So there's usually a little band of tissue that's left that's not getting dilated the rest of the way because we're not getting adequate pressure on it. So a provider could put their finger inside and they could hold the tissue. If baby's like, let's say baby's posterior or something, and they're coming through and there's this little band of tissue, it typically leaves an anterior lip. They call it a lip, a little rubber band, like kind of line of tissue on the front, because in a posterior position, the way that the baby's head is oriented, it usually leaves a little bit here. And so they could put their finger in, they could lift that band up and say push, see if they can hold it out of the way where you push and try to get the baby to come down. Sometimes that works. I think it's more successful with a posterior baby. With an asynclitic baby, typically it doesn't work because the baby is tilted sideways, and that's a really hard way to navigate the bony structure of the pelvis. And so if we're gonna like try to push as hard as you can to get the baby further while holding up the band of tissue, it could work, but we're also running the risk of getting baby lower in the pelvis. So an alternative approach is to do inversions from spinning babies, and to potentially even do alternative ways. There's alternative ways to do inversions. For example, I went to a birth when the mom was 7 centimeters at like 7:30 in the morning, and she didn't have her baby until like 1 or 2 a.m., which is crazy. She was 7 centimeters and it took her that long. And that's because baby was asynclitic. So we did inversions and the baby was asynclitic, leaning way towards the right. So she got on the couch with her leg up on the couch, kind of leaning upside down, if that kind of makes sense. So like if you lie on the couch and scoot your hips up and your legs up the couch, so you're kind of upside down a little bit on the left side. So we had her like kind of lie upside down and have contractions upside down on the left side to try to get the baby to move to the left side a little bit, and it worked. It's amazing. But what we did was to get the baby to move to the left and come out of the pelvis. And we did contractions like this for a while to get baby all the way out of the pelvis. Once baby was out of the pelvis, she went back upright and the baby started to engage and engaged in a better way. And she was able to have a vaginal birth. But then we had to start at the beginning of labor. Baby was like really far through, like super close. So we had to get baby all the way out and start labor over from the beginning. But it worked. And that's the power of positions. But often that kind of thing can be prevented if we do some inversions ahead of time. So with the inversion, I would get in hands and knees, get onto your knees and go down on your forearms. I would go down on your hands first and then go down onto your forearms to kind of get your booty in the air, and do this off of a low bed or couch. So you want your booty to kind of be up in the air like this. You don't have to be like fully upside down, but at an angle is what is important. And have your partner there with you to like spot you. I go down, take 3 deep breaths, come back up, and then do it again 3 times. So it's a set of 3. So we do the side lying release for 2 minutes on each side, the inversion. So we go down, take 3 deep breaths and do that 3 times. And then the last one is to either use the Rebozo, which is a tool that was created by indigenous Mexican midwives. It's an incredible tool. You could also use a scarf or a sheet, wrap around your hips and shake. And I have the video to that in the Spinning Babies lesson. That's a really great thing the partner can do. It feels so good. It's also really good for you to hang out in a hands and knees position in pregnancy. The way that your belly hangs supports an anterior position. So spending time at the end of the day in the hands and knees, leaning over a birth ball with your partner doing this, or friend on your hips for 2 minutes every night can feel really, really good. So the last one is the jiggle. So you could do either the Rebozo or you could do the jiggle, or both. I would do both because the more time my man spends working on my hips at the end of pregnancy, the happier I am. So I do both, but what matters is that you do one. So the Rebozo feels so good. The jiggle can also feel good, and you can just see what feels better. Typically, I find the Rebozo feels better for me. With the jiggle, you could be in hands and knees leaning over the birth ball. I invite that because being in hands and knees is a good thing to do at the end of pregnancy. You could also just stand and like bend your knees a little bit. Your partner will come to your thighs and put their hand on each side of your thighs and wiggle like this. Oh, you could be doing the sideline release, and someone could do this on your booty. Hands and knees over the birth ball is my favorite. And have your partner wiggle your thigh and kind of work up to your booty a little bit and shake your booty, shake your thighs. This is a great tool to use when you're actually in labor, not only to support releasing muscles so that baby can descend and be in a good position, but sometimes we can tense in the presence of contractions. When you can force yourself to relax, it makes labor work better. And like having someone jiggle your thighs can help you to release muscles. It just makes you release your muscles, and that can help your labor work better, but it also helps to release tension around those muscles too. So it can be really supportive for preparing for labor as well.